Americans fired the first shot before the Pearl Harbor attack. The first of many Pearl Harbor facts many people don't realize is that on the morning of December 7, 1941, the Wicks-class destroyer USS Ward attacked and sank a Kohiotekki-class midget submarine near the entrance to the harbor, making it not only the first shot fired on that day, but the first official American shots in the war. The minesweeper Condor spotted the Japanese sub's periscope above the water, which alerted the crew of the Ward, who opened fire on the intruder. Unfortunately, the reports from the Ward were discounted and disbelieved by Navy brass, something they'd paid dearly for. The ship's crew didn't get confirmation that they'd sunk the submarine for over 60 years. The attack on Pearl Harbor lasted for only 1 hour and 15 minutes. Coming in from all directions, the defenders had no idea which direction they should fire. Wave after wave, Japanese planes arrived, targeting airstrips, ships, buildings, and storage areas. Dive bombers, fighters, torpedo bombers, and high-level bombers blanketed the sky, dropping their deadly payloads across the island of Oahu. The two waves of aircraft enacted a heavy toll on their targets, namely Battleship Row. The Pearl Harbor attack began at 7:55 a.m. HST on Sunday morning. Japanese aircraft were launched from the Japanese fleet north of Hawaii, consisting of 67 ships, 6 heavy aircraft carriers, 2 heavy cruisers, 35 submarines, 2 light cruisers, 9 oilers, 2 battleships, 11 destroyers, 353 aircraft, 40 torpedo planes, 103 level bombers, 131 dive bombers, 79 fighters. The attack on Pearl Harbor led to the U.S. entering World War II. With the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. could no longer avoid an active fight. On December 8th, U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt asked Congress to approve his declaration of war. The U.S. declared war on Japan on December 8th. 3 days later, Japanese allies Germany and Italy declared war against the United States. More than 2 years after the start of the conflict, the United States finally entered World War II. Japanese submarines were supposed to play a major role in the attack. The Japanese forces had planned to use their submarines for a number of different tasks before, during, and after the Pearl Harbor attack. Before the Japanese bombers and fighter planes arrived from their aircraft carriers to the north, these submarines were to scout to penetrate the harbor's defenses. Once the attack from the air started, they were to release their torpedoes at prime targets and escape back out of the channel. After the attack, these submarines were to station themselves in pre-designated spots on the islands to pick up any pilots who couldn't make it back to their carriers due to fuel or mechanical issues. One such pilot landed on Niihau, a small Hawaiian island near Kauai. Unfortunately for that Japanese pilot, his submarine had long left its position, stranding him there. The surprise attack did not destroy the entire American Pacific Fleet. In the surprise attack on Battleship Row on December 7th, the Arizona and Oklahoma were damaged beyond repair by bombs or torpedo hits. Most ships returned to service. Of the 2,026 American sailors and Marines killed in the attack, 1,606 had been aboard these two ships. 3 more battleships, the California, West Virginia, and Nevada, sank upright in the shallow water of the harbor. They were salvaged, and while many vessels did not return to the battlefield for several years, most suffered repairable damage. The battleship Missouri is now anchored there. The USS Arizona Memorial and Battleship Missouri are bookends to the war. These two mighty naval battleships proudly served the United States for many decades, anchored near each other in the harbor. Battleship Arizona resting below the gentle waves of the harbor where it blew up and sank during the attack on the date which will live in infamy. This attack started the USA's formal entry into World War II. Battleship Missouri represents the end of the war. This mighty ship, launched in 1944, participated in the shelling of Iwo Jima and Okinawa before sailing into Tokyo Bay to host the formal surrender of Japan. They signed at a small table on her teak decks with sailors and Marines witnessing the proceedings. A remarkable USS Arizona fact that honors the survivors is that they have the option to join their lost comrades and make the ship their final resting place. Crew members who served on board the USS Arizona during the attack may choose to have their ashes deposited by divers beneath one of sunken Arizona's gun turrets. Roughly 44 Arizona survivors have chosen this option. Other military survivors can choose to have their ashes scattered wherever their ship was located during the attacks. The last person to be interred in the ship was in 2019. By the time the first Japanese bomber appeared over Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, tensions between Japan and the United States had been mounting for the better part of a decade, making war seem inevitable. Japan's naval forces depended on the United States to supply natural and industrial resources, namely oil, without which its forces would be significantly impaired. This led Japan to target Southeast Asia, which is rich in minerals and oil. While they knew that such an invasion would lead to war against America, Japan decided to destroy America's Pacific Fleet to prevent American interference in its plan to access countries' resources in Southeast Asia, which Japan called the Southern Resource Area. This was the primary reason behind the attack on Pearl Harbor. Japan concentrated on just destroying the battleships of the U.S. Navy, as it thought that the Pacific Fleet battles would be decided on them. This proved to be wrong. Had Japan focused the attack beyond the fleet and targeted Navy repair yards, oil tank farms, submarine bases, and the old headquarters building, it could have inflicted far greater damage. Because the plan was made to focus on battleships, American aircraft carriers were untouched by the attack, as they were out at sea. This led to America being able to rebuild quickly for the war on Japan and ultimately reverse the Japanese advance after the setbacks of early 1942. Admiral Hara Tadaichi summed up the Japanese result by saying, "We won a great tactical victory at Pearl Harbor and thereby lost the war." The day before the attacks, the USS Arizona took on a full load of fuel, nearly 1.5 million gallons. Much of that fuel helped ignite the explosion and subsequent fires that destroyed the ships, but amazingly, some fuel continues to seep out of the wreckage. According to the History Channel, the Arizona continues to spill up to 9 quarts of oil into the harbor each day. This adds to the emotional gravity of this memorial, and those visiting often refer to this phenomenon as the Tears of the Arizona or Black Tears.